Hello, welcome to this video. In this video, I would like to share my experience on passing Microsoft Power BI certification exam. This is very helpful for those of you considering getting into the field of business intelligence. So this is a great video for two group of people. Number one, you have been working on Power BI. You have some great hands-on experience, and now you just want to make a step forward to advance your career, thinking about getting certified. So this video is for you. And for the second group of friends and people, is for people they are interested in getting into the world of business intelligence. They are thinking about starting a career. So this could be a recent graduate, or this could be someone about to graduate from school. They really want to get into this, but they really want to have some good foundation in terms of the learning part, as well as having a proof to showcase to your prospective employer that you are Power BI certified. It is also good for those people that they are very familiar with using spreadsheet for their analysis. They can do analysis for ad hoc projects. Now they want to take that a step forward so that they have a more systematic way of analyzing things and getting data out ready. All right, before further ado, let's take a look at what I plan to talk about today. First, I would like to touch upon this exam, PL300, for Microsoft Power BI Data Analyst. Let's jump right in. So for those of you who have never, taken an exam from Microsoft, one way to do it is to just, do a Google search, for example, Power BI Data Analyst, and that takes you to the exam. And bear in mind that the exam does change from time to time, so make sure you are taking the most updated exam. And most of the time, when you get into Power BI, when you get into Microsoft website, it takes you to the most updated information. So now it's 2023, so this is the latest information available for you. And there are three things I'd like to direct your attention to. Number one, always make sure what is this exam for. So it says this is part of the requirement for Microsoft Certified Power BI Data Analyst Associate. So let's just take a look. So this is the exam. This is the exam, and they talk about the certification details. And this is the exam we talk about. Let me rephrase this a little bit. So this is the actual certification for Power BI Data Analyst Associate. And then the previous page talks about the exam that we need to look at. So that's the first thing. Always double check if this is the exam for the certification. And for some of the certification, it does require more than one exam. The second part is, always double check this study guide. So for example, for 2023, there's an update for the exam. So what I'm going to share with you is the most updated information based on this update. So that's number two. And number three is depending on where you live, if you're in the United States or in Canada, it is very typical. You just go through the process to schedule the exam. If you live outside North America, or you live here, but you prefer a different language to take your exam, they do offer exam in different languages. For example, Japanese, Chinese, Korean, German, French. It's here. That's the second thing, and then let's take a look at what is going to be tested for the exam. So I've already get to the study guide. So make sure you have this handy. And even if you are not sure if you are going to take the exam or not, because it is quite a big commitment financially and in terms of time as well. So this is a study guide for PL 300, Microsoft Power BI Data Analyst. So make sure you click on this part to get the latest version. And so let's just jump right in. So there are four parts that's being measured. First one is prepare the data, and this is a percentage of a percentage on this exam for this part. The second part is model the data. The third part is visualize and analyze the data. The fourth part is deploy and maintain assets. So now we talk about the overview, the cost, and how you will sign up. I would like to, before we move on to the next part, I'd like to talk about this sandbox for exam experience. This is very important for those of you that had never taken an exam with Microsoft or any exam of this sort. So this is where you can find the exam sandbox. So click on this. So this just provides you with the look and feel of how it will look like. So this is the exam agreement. So for those of you who have taken it, it's good to take a look before the exam so you know what it is about. And for the sandbox, so bear in mind this is a sandbox for this is a generic sandbox for Microsoft exam in general, not particularly for this Power BI exam. Let's take a look at it so you have a better idea. It's easy to see. And this is just the welcome message. And the most important part, I would like you to kind of experience is this. Okay, one more next. So basically, you will be presented with this screen when you do the exam. So first one, it tells you, what, the question number, and then you can mark to review later. It is helpful. Say, there's one question you're not sure, but you don't want to spend too much time on it, so you can click on it. So by the time toward the end, if you want to look at these ones, they will be marked as review later. I don't usually use this leave feedback, so just leave it there. And time remaining. So on the exam, I think the actual exam is I think it's either 2.5 hours or 3 hours. Just double check. It does change sometimes. So it does tell you the time remaining. So it helps you to paste your how you answer the exam, right? So and then the next part is kind of straightforward. A lot of time is multiple choice questions. So you just pick one. So it would tell you a bit more about the choices on the exam. And for the help, you can take a look at these instructions. So just get acquainted with how it is. And then the calculators, in case you need to use it. The color stream, the color scheme, and to reset answer. And so these are things you can do. And once you are done with this, I'm not using take a break part because I think that the time was still continue on the actual setup, right? So I don't really use this. But once you are set for the other question, you can just click through, and then say for example, this is a you need to make a choice. This is not a single choice one, so you need to make a choice that's more than one, right? So you just check, kind of keep doing it. And among these 10 questions, it just tells you, different format of questions and answer in terms of these computer-based exam. So take some time, make sure you get acquainted with all these 10 sample questions in terms of the format, right? So this, I think this was very helpful So I know what to expect ahead of time, right? So you don't get surprised. All right, so let me close this. So let's move on to the second part, resources for preparation. The first part is Microsoft Learn. Let me take you to that. It is on the same page of the exam, and more toward the second half of it. Under preparation, you have this learning path. I would highly recommend that you go through the learning path. I found it very helpful because the feedback I got from my friends or the interns or my colleagues that were preparing for it and that took the exam, they often told me after the exam that sometimes they will come across some third-party training courses, and either they are too hard or either they are too easy, and it was very hard for them to have kind of to gauge how ready they were before the exam. However, because they took my advice to go through the Microsoft Learn part, so they were able to see what kind of depth and breadth is required to pass the exam. So just go through it. I think this is really, really good. So in addition to Microsoft Learn, there are, in addition to these here, there are other things that you can use. So here, I just found uh, the documentation I was referring to. So just look out for Power BI documentation, and it takes you to this one. So there are a lot of great sections. For example, get started, tutorial, concept, and the how-to guide, and as well as the training. So these are very helpful, especially in two parts. So for those of you that have been using Power BI, but maybe more focused on one part of it, right? You might be more familiar with using it, say, checking out a report on PowerBI.com as like a business user, or you might be more familiar with it to kind of use the Power BI desktop, but not familiar with the setup on Power BI servers. So these would be a great place for you, and also be a great reference for you if you've not heard of Power BI. So you can start from get started, where to find the Power BI desktop, how to install it, and go through some of the other tutorials. However, I would like to point out that this documentation is a very comprehensive collection of things. I would say almost everything about Power BI. So some of the information might be beyond the scope of the exam. For that reason, always double check the study guide. So this is the second part to take a look. One thing I like to point out is some of the tutorials, they do come with some of the modules. They do come with a hands-on experience that will allow you to use a virtual machine that's set up on by Microsoft for you to use Microsoft Power BI without actually having to install the machine on your device. So that's one. And secondly, you will be able to go through the, the tutorial, the materials with that machine without having to worry about the configuration. If you're interested in knowing more about those, please leave me a comment and make sure you subscribe and click the like so that I know this is something people are interested in. All right, so coming back to the resources. So we touch upon Microsoft Learn as well as the Power BI documentation. Now I'm going to direct you to the training video. So it is actually, you can actually find the link on the exam page too. So let's take a look. So this is how it will look like. So there are 4 parts. I'm not going to play the video now, but there are basically 4 parts. So number 1 is prepare the data, and then there are all the 4 parts. And number 2 is model the data. Number 3 is visualize and analyze the data. Number 4 is deploy and maintain assets. So this is the same kind of segmentation of the 4 parts, or the 4 group of skills that will be tested on the exam. So this is a great place to start if you are not sure, or if if sometimes it's hard if you're new to kind of using the Microsoft system and their resources. And so this video is very helpful for 3 main reasons. Number 1, you kind of have a good ideas of what each part is about. So each video is about 20 minutes long. So you kind of have a good idea. You with that, most of my friends, my colleagues, my interns, they will know if this is something that interests them. So that's number 1. Number 2, sometimes it's hard. I would say it's probably hard most of the time if you haven't gone through any exam before. It's kind of hard to know what's being measured, right? So taking this for example, so this is the same documentation, and this is the latest outline for 2023. So for example, for the first part, prepare the data. So with prepare the data, you see these segments. The first one is get data from data source, clean data, transform and load the data. So you kind of have an idea what it is, and of course you can go through some of the items. For example, what does it mean by cleaning the data? So there are 3 parts. So you evaluate data, including data statistics and the column properties. It's like what? And then the second part is resolve inconsistencies, unexpected or no values, and data quality issues. It's like, okay, I kind of have some idea. And then the third part is resolve data import errors. So by seeing and by reading this outline alone, it may not be sufficient, because these are still at very high level. So this is where the video come to help. So take a look at the video if reading the outline is not very clear to you. And of course, this will be hand in hand with this Microsoft Learn. So this is very important. And Power BI documentation, you can use it as a supplement. And this is very helpful before or while you prepare for the exam. And this is very helpful throughout your career as a BI developer. Right, so let's go back. And then the third part, when it comes to resources for preparation, Google search is always your best friend. And make sure you make notes. So my experience is, again, it's all about knowing what's being tested. And sometimes, when I go through the tutorial or documentation, there might be certain kind of phrases or keyword or description that I have no idea what it is about, or there might be times I'll run into issues. So this is where I would use the Google search, and make sure you make notes, and make sure for the purpose of passing the exam, right? You kind of search with a purpose in mind, right? So make sure you know which kind of section does it belong to. Make sure which part is it, because this would help you to review these notes maybe days before the exam, right? Because you don't want to be stressed out. It's easy when there are just maybe just 10 areas that you need to look into, become 3 and become 1 just before the exam. So make sure you make notes. Right, so this concludes the second part, resources for preparation. All right, so now let's look at the third part, experience that helped. So as I mentioned, I enjoy being a BI developer, and this is something I've been advocating, especially for people that want to kind of get into the field from a different field, or for people coming from the business. They've been using Power BI or BI tools in general. Now they want to know more about it. Right, so the first part, online courses and preparation. So, addition to Microsoft Learn and the videos and the documentation, I've come across some online courses. I've done some of them. I found it was good, but it may not be needed. The most important part is to go through these resources from Microsoft. So these are very, very important to go through. But say if you prefer to to always kind of have an instructor to do it for you, right? So you can pick like a course that you feel like comfortable with. So the platform I use is Udemy, and I found some of the courses really helpful than the others. The other thing I want to point out is I've seen some courses or some offerings for this mock exam. I would say be mindful and be skeptical, because there isn't really a way for anyone to prepare a mock exam. So it is good for the experience, right? It is good for to test you, to test your knowledge and to help you understand what is the gap between what you know and what's required for the exam. But don't rely too much on it, because I've done those like prep exams that turn out to be too simple, right? You don't want to be misled, right? It's like, oh, I'm ready. Well, in fact, you are not. And I've done mock exam preps that turned to be too difficult, and that's that's two things, right? One is it is not very motivating. I kind of lost confidence after that, right? And then two is uh, it did kind of prompt me to do a lot of Google search. It was really good for my knowledge, but it was not required for the exam. So be mindful if you decide to use those prep exams. So always circle back to the exam guide. And if something's like a very small percentage, right? And likely it's not as important for you to pass exam, because that might not be a very big part for your day-to-day work as a BI developer. So that's the first thing. The second part is hands-on experience and Microsoft resources. As I mentioned, I'm coming more from a data analyst and business analyst background. So I've been using a lot of, Excels, a lot of these tools before I got into BI tools. So Microsoft Power BI is one of the tools that I use a lot. So hands-on experience was very helpful, and Microsoft resources that I mentioned earlier. So for those of you, if you are coming from a different background, say if Power BI is not something you do on a daily basis, make sure you go through those tutorials. And if this is something that interests you, and if you like to know more about Power BI, how I learned Power BI, become before I become very proficient at it, right? So I had gone through the learning process, right? So if this is something that interests you, please subscribe the channel, like my video, and so that and leave comments, right? So I know this is something people are interested in knowing. So this is the second part. The third part, just do it mentality. So this is the last but not the least part. Signing up for the exam is quite a commitment financially, right? $165 is not cheap, especially if you are a student, right? Or especially if your company doesn't pay you for that, right? Even if they pay you for that, I think you have to pass it, right? Even if they don't mind paying you again, but it's not a great experience that they pay for you but and expect you to pass, but you don't, right? So what I have in mind is, and what my suggestion is this: just do it mentality. So I'm coming from my, my experience with Microsoft exams, or exams in general. So I've done some exams throughout my career. I remember my very first exam, which is now Power BI, which is cloud certification. I feel like I because I didn't know what to expect, right? So I wanted to be, fully prepared before I go for the exam, and then I passed, right? Because I was more than fully prepared. But what I learned when I look back is, sometimes you just need to be, good enough to write exam. Say, for example, you are, let's say, it's it takes like 70%, 80%, correct, we'll touch upon the score, in a bit. So I say for example, if it takes like 70% correct on the exam to pass it, and if it turned out that you only have 60% on your first attempt, so obviously you don't pass. But it's very it would be kind of clear to you, what is the gap, right? What is the missing part? It could be like one part that you come across on the exam, and then you have no idea. But after the exam, you just kind of refer back to the exam guide, and you kind of realize, okay, there's one particular part, for example, the deploy and maintain asset part that was on the exam, and you had little idea because you didn't think that was important, or you tried to understand more, but you didn't have enough time. So the next time, or before your next exam, you know what to focus on, and using the same example, right? So out of the four parts, and if like through part 1 to part 3, this is something really easy for you. You have really good idea, and you don't have to worry about it. Then it could take just a week or two before you get for you to be familiar and comfortable with the missing part, the gap, before you to take it. Because circling back to this, right? I really like you know I really like doing business intelligence analysis. I really like using the tool. I like what I do, how I interact with the stakeholders. I think this is a great kind of place, or a great kind of job to have, and and this is all it matters, right? So if if it is just one exam between you and get into a field that you're really interested in, I would say just do it, right? Just do it. Most of my friends, they passed it on the first attempt, after kind of following through the experience I share. I'm kind of sharing the exact same experience with you today as what I told my friends, colleagues, and interns that or mentees, right? Because I have mentees throughout one of the mentorship program. Just do it. So before I wrap up, I know I kind of touched a little bit upon the passing score. So you actually see it here, and you can kind of read more about it on the passing score, because a lot of I'm pretty sure this is something most people um, are interested in, right? So the long and short of it, it's out of scale 1 to 1,000. The passing score is 700. So it's like, well, it's like 70%. So it is not 70%. This is a scaled score. So if you are interested in knowing more details, you can kind of follow on and read more about it. But I wouldn't really, worry too much about the passing score. Just be prepared, just do it, and you have an idea. Because what's important though is you will see, here how to access your score report. So after the exam, you can take a look at how well you did, and then there's a part about understanding the score report. So this is how what helped me, or what would help people in general if they don't pass on the first attempt. And let me know if this is something you are interested in knowing more. And then I might kind of create a short video on this as well. All right, so thanks again for watching this video on passing Microsoft Power BI certification exam. And if you haven't checked out the other video about the job perspective and the salary in North America, please check out the other video. So thank you so much. I'll see you next time in my other video. Thank you.